Okay. Well, first off, I'm going to preface to my YouTube channel that there's 2 people here, so if it's like awkwardly silent, let's just go on. Okay. Well, first off, thank you for coming and supporting, especially you, girl. You've been to every single one.
Dude, yeah. I need it a lot. I think you have a lot of interesting stuff to say. I feel like someone like this one friend I need to come. I think she needs to hear some things. Dude, it could be anything. Even my aunt almost came right now, but she had to go back and help watch my son because the only one up right now. Like my grandma's with my youngest, putting him down, and the other one's with the other one. My sister just she has like epilepsy, so she had a seizure last night.
No, is she okay?
So yeah, she's good. She like has him very like spread out, and she's been doing like it's been so good. Like this medication has been helping her. But yesterday she had one, so today she's a little like, I wouldn't trust to have my son. But she can't just get up and like I had to like even get her some water. She's literally laying down, sitting in the chair, and like was throwing up when I got there at like 1. So like. She just better chill in that chair, like not get up and
no assistance
What if my
needed
son
and valid.
climbs like on the sink and she has to go get it?
Yeah, for sure.
So I'd be like, my aunt's like, whatever. Maybe she'll come next time. There's still, I don't know how many you have left, but till like what, August?
The end of July.
July.
So so we have
quite a bit.
6 left.
Enough time for people to come.
Yeah. Okay. So today's topic is permission to pivot, which is just like a really fancy Instagrammable way of saying permission to give yourself grace, to let yourself change, and to give yourself flexibility. So it's basically the willingness and acceptance that pivots come whether you give them permission to show up or not. In the sense of life throws something at you, you have to redirect yourself. Or you're trying to tackle a goal and the way that you're tackling it is like not working for you. And even though it works for somebody else, it's not working for you. So it's not like quitting, it's just trying to figure out a different way to get to the point that you want to get at. So I just wanted to go over some personal experiences. Giving myself permission, and I'm not perfect at it. Even today, I was thrown off my game. My son was running late. It took me 30 minutes to drop him off at the daycare. I was like kind of pissy, and then I was like, didn't do my full cardio because the Stairmaster machine just gave up midway through it, and I was just like, oh God, nothing's going right. And then, mistake on my part, I forgot to print the papers off until today. So then I go to the library, and I'm stressed, obviously, and I'm just like, please print. And then the printer wasn't working, so like everything was just not going to plan. My goal was still to just show up today, so. I had to pivot a couple of times, and I wasn't doing it calmly today. I was a little psycho. So when I am preaching this at you, I'm not saying, hey, you got to be calm every time life throws something at you, but it's good to have tools to recenter yourself, so that way you can, when you're ready, you can be like, right, I can just keep going. This isn't going to be the end of everything, So I want to go over 3 main types of pivots, or events or categories in which present large amounts of change and you need flexibility. So the number 1 is a goal pivot. So a lot of times, like, we will make, because of the structure of the systems that we live in, right? When you're 18, you suddenly have to decide your career, your family, your life path, whatever. But I don't remember almost nearly a single thought I had when I was 18 that wasn't stupid. Okay, like,
yes.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I was an okay teenager, but I was also dumb because my brain was super developed. You know what I mean? So, like,
we're all like think we're developed, right? But
yeah,
we're still like developing, like even when we're like 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, all the way up till 27.
For real.
Like, I still got pieces in my brain, not locked in. Okay, I'm 26. I might, like, next year I might just be like, I'm the biggest idiot in the world. Like, I don't know what's to come, but goals that we set sometimes become our personality and become like what people know us for, and so it makes it very awkward and weird to pivot from that, especially when maybe one of your goals was I want to get married and have 20 kids. Maybe you did get married and maybe you did have 15 kids, and then you're like, I don't like this person the same way I liked them when I was 18. You know what I mean? That's a hard pivot. That's a really, really hard pivot, and it is a big pivot, and it is not easy to challenge.
I got married when I was 17.
Yeah, and a lot of people make it work, especially in this area. Most people get married when they're 18.
I'm not with that person now, but.
Well, there you go. But people change, and every 7 years,
exactly.
you go through really big life changes. And so if you guys don't, it doesn't have to be for bad reasons, but just like every 7 years, if you're not kind of going in the same direction, you're gonna go apart, you know? So it's okay to, so anyway, that's a main category of pivots. The method pivot is where your goal stays the same, but the way you're going about it is not helpful to you, and you have to pivot how you do it. A lot of times, a method pivot needs to change, specifically, like in my experience with weight loss. Like when I was losing weight, sometimes it would work, but it would not be sustainable because I was doing it in an unhealthy way, and I'd gain it really fast. Or sometimes I was doing something and it wasn't working because it wasn't working for my body and my insulin resistance and like my lifestyle. Like, you know, things weren't working. And eventually I found something that helped me lose 100 pounds. But it took a lot of trial and errors, and my goal never changed, but the method did. And a lot of times I felt like a loser, or I felt like I was failing, or I was a quitter. But in the end, my goal was the same, and I got to it because I was willing to keep trying. And that's why method pivoting is very important to acknowledge, because sometimes the way you're going about things isn't helpful, but you still want to get to where you're going. So then the last one's micro pivots, and as moms, we all know what a micro pivot is, because it is day-to-day life, every day, every single second motherhood, okay? Every time you make a plan for the day, expect your toddler to kind of ruin it, and it's fine. That's what they're supposed to do, you know what I mean? Like, they're their own little independent human beings with their own little plans and feelings. They don't really care about your schedule. They don't care about your chore wheel. They don't care about that stuff, okay? They just care that they want, like, gummy snacks, and they'll go play with their friends, and they need a nap, you know what I mean? So those are the three main types of pivots: goal pivot, method pivot, micro pivots. I can't even read my own handwriting. That's awesome. Okay, so giving myself permission to pivot was super helpful for two main reasons, because pivoting or change comes whether you give it permission or not, but with permission gives you a little bit of grace when those things come up. Because if pivoting is part of the plan, you're not shocked to your core when you have to pivot during the middle of your plan. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just kind of integrated in there, it doesn't mean it's less frustrating. It doesn't mean it's like less traumatic or weird, but it does mean I knew this was coming. And I also have grace and flexibility to do so. So that's helpful. And then I guess I just combined my 2 points in one. Look at me. Efficient. So I wanted to give you three very specific examples of each pivot in my life, and it all pertains to motherhood. So the goal pivot, I did a really good job with this one. Okay, this is one I accepted. I'll share one that I didn't accept, and it really backfired on me. Okay, the first one was when I found out I was pregnant. The week before I found out I was pregnant, here's where I was at. I'll give you the setting. I'll tell you my life trajectory, and then I found out. Okay, I was 22 years old, and TMI, but me and my friend both decided, let's go get double appointments to go get our nipples pierced.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Whoa. Well, I was like, I don't know. I'm young. I'm crazy. I can do whatever I want.
You did it though?
I didn't. Let me tell you what. Well, so like, I just mean like, I was on the path of, I'm just dating this new guy. I'm young. We're going to go drinking on the weekends. We're going to be crazy. I'm going to go get my nipples pierced with my best friend of 8 years. And there was like literally no serious thought going on because I was 22. You know, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I have this whole life ahead of me. And I also had a ton of money saved to go travel because I was a major traveler. Like, and I was literally just kind of a pit stop in Twin. You know what I mean? I was just kind of like, I'll stay here for a few months, save some money, like make more money and then save it. So I had this huge savings to just blow and be free and just be silly goose. And then in the middle of the night, I was like, wow, I really want some coffee at like 2 a.m., which is kind of like psychotic. But I was just like, yeah, I'm really craving coffee. So I go out to the kitchen, I make coffee, then I have to go to the bathroom, and I see my roommate's pregnancy test, and I was like, why not? I don't know why, so I paid her back, don't I? But
she's all, you're like, if she took one, so I'm gonna take one too.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know.
Fuck it, let me take one.
Literally, so it's 2 a.m., my coffee's brewing in the kitchen, I pee on a stick, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I get a little nervous, because I'm just like, why did I do this? You know what I mean? And I look down, and mind you, next morning, scheduled for nipple piercing I want. Okay, that's where my brain was at. It's 2 a.m. and I'm a bartender also, so the next day I was going to go to a bartending shift and then go to this appointment, you know, up in Boise. So I see it, and I'm dating this guy for 3 months, and I see the positive. And crazily, I was like, all right, radical acceptance, probably out of shock, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually did just I said, okay, whatever plans you just had, pivot. Because they're gone, dude. Like, and because for me, other options, that might be other options for other people, that wasn't an option for me. Right. So there was really only one direction going here, you know? And there was other factors of like, is this guy gonna ditch me? Like, this is crazy. Where am I gonna live? Where am I gonna get this money? What am I gonna do? I don't know. But in that moment, I accepted it, and the transition into being like, okay, cancel your plans, make new ones, was actually, it was scary. It didn't change the fear factor of it. But I coasted into it, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm mom now. I literally poured out my coffee, and I was like, I'm responsible.
You didn't even drink the coffee?
No, I literally was just like, I might hurt the baby. I don't know. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like, but I immediately switched into, I do now have to care, and I am a responsible adult. You know what I mean? So, and then I canceled the nipple appointment because I was like, I might need these later, I guess. I don't know. And then I called my friend and I said, listen, we're canceling the appointment, but I'm still coming up there because I'm going to panic with you, dude. And she was like, what? And I was like, I think you're pregnant. And then the whole day, instead of going and getting my nipples pierced, we took 8, well, not we, but she supported me while I took 8 different pregnancy tests because I was in denial. But then I just discussed, like, all my hopes and dreams for the future 9 months, you know? And it was weird. But that is an example of, that's a crazy pivot. Mm-hmm. That's a crazy change of life trajectory within 24 hours, okay? Mm-hmm. But because I gave myself grace of just like, okay, it doesn't matter what your plans were for tomorrow, you got to change them.
That's kind of funny. That's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah?
I was trying with my ex-husband for like 4 years. I was with my boyfriend right now, which is my kid's dad, for probably 8 weeks, maybe less. And I think we only slept together twice. Well, I was at work because I was waitressing, and he like worked there too. I think like we were together, but like he didn't want anything serious because like he just got out of this weird relationship. But like we were still whatever. I'm just like at work, and I don't know, like I think like my period was late or something, and my periods were always weird. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know, whatever, you know. It's fine. It's fine. It's probably coming. And I'm not too worried about it. I seriously did not think I was pregnant.
Yeah, but it's always weird when it crosses your mind.
For real. This girl there, like this other waitress, I don't even know what, but she's all, oh, like, what if you're pregnant, blah, blah. I'm like, no. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go get a pregnancy test right now. Like, on my break, I'll go to the doctor.
I'll prove you wrong.
I was at Denny's. I just walk in the parking lot and I go get it. I come back, like, I go to the bathroom and I take it. It was weird. Like, I watched it and I'm like, maybe I like, shouldn't watch it, right? Because I'm like, I was kind of anxious because, like, in my time, like, was weird, obviously, because, like, I've just been with him. And then, like, I didn't think it was going to happen. It, like, was so fast, I was like, what the heck? Yeah. It comes back, I go out there, I'm all, so I think I was all, I'm not. This is just lying. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
She's all, oh, no, you're pregnant. I was like, I was so anxious to tell him when he got off, because I was like, oh, shit, is he going to like me?
Yeah, and it's a lot. It's like a huge pivot for both of you, for sure.
I'm like, and he was like older than me, so I was like, no, this is weird. I'm like, because my thought too, I'm like, I'm not gonna like, I guess like in the time of your life where you're having kids, you're like, want to party, right? So some people could be like, well, I could like go abort it, but like actually now it's illegal, so I guess you can't just do that now.
See, that's another pivot.
Pay for it. Yeah, you'd have to go pay for it and save your money or travel.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I had to just stop what I was doing. I was like, okay. Yeah. It took me even 3 months to realize I was pregnant too. I was like,
yeah, and that's a scary realization. It doesn't matter whether you were trying to or not. Like, it's a big change, you know?
You're like, you are a mom now.
I'm like, yeah, like, you walk in.
This is you.
But an example of the pivot that I resisted, and that was equally as scary, if not more, was actually giving birth to the child, right? That I was so prepared to have. I was dead set on breaking all of the generational cycles my parents had set up, because I wasn't planning on having kids, because I was just like, I was going to mess it up. You know what I mean? So I was just like, okay, I am bound and determined. I had this goal that I'm going to be the perfect mom. He's never going to know a day of frustration, of an unclean house, or me yelling. I had set this weird stack of expectations against myself that no one should have, but especially anyone postpartum, especially, okay, this is my situation that I was facing. I have all these expectations. I was very large when I went into labor, but it was a month early, or 5 weeks early. And I was staying at my parents' house, which was kind of weirdly, underlyingly traumatic because it was like my childhood home that I was trying to avoid recreating, right? So there was just like a setting of underlying stress there, you know? But I had to be closer to the NICU that they have there in Twin because I was at high risk pregnancy. I was deeply, deeply uncomfortable for 3 days before I actually spoke up and said anything. I was in labor for 3 days. But my whole pregnancy was awful. So I just thought, what's a little bit more pain? And then they were like, girl, like, go get in there. And my ankles, I was like literally, like for perspective of how much water I was holding, I was 180 pounds when I got pregnant. I got up to 230 pounds, and within a week after pregnancy, I was 150 pounds. I was literally malnourished, and I was just ginormous because of how much water was in my body, okay? Also, my kid was 10.5 pounds, so he just added a little bit of weight there. But I was like insanely bloated, like barely not being able to waddle around.
The water.
Yeah, I had preeclampsia.
So you were holding the water.
Yeah, I was holding all the water.
Not everybody holds it. Some people do, which
Oh, no, yeah, it was a high risk. That's why I had to be close. So I go in there within 8 minutes of going in there. Dylan's not with me. He's in Burley because he's like a teacher there, you know? So within 8 minutes, they're like, you gotta get the sucker out. His bro's not coming out by himself because he's been in labor for 3 days and he's just like not moving. So I was like, we have to get Dylan. So all my perfect plans immediately are crumbling, which is stupid to have anyway. But I didn't know that because I've never had a baby before, so.
Some people could go with it.
Well,
you could have. I mean, everything goes wrong, you know.
Well, right, but I just mean that like you can have a birth plan, but it might just get messed up. So, but that was not an option for me. I was like, denial. I'm keeping the sucker in until whoever shows up, okay? But he got there pretty quick. We had the baby. He was fine. In that sense, he was healthy, but he was a preemie baby, so he was stuck in the NICU, which means Dylan was like, okay, I'm going to use my 8 days of paid leave for when he gets home so you have help. So then all of a sudden, it was me who just went through a really traumatic birth experience, just leaking out water everywhere, dude, because I had a lot of retention. Alone with the baby in the NICU and having to leave him at night to go spend the night at my parents' house, which again, underlying weird trauma going on there. Meanwhile, I feel guilty that I did something wrong or whatever, like spiraling out because everything has to be my fault. Couldn't just be nature, you know? So I was like, I'm already the worst mom. Okay, then for 15 days, because it was 3 days of labor, then 12 more days, I didn't sleep at all. Not an hour, not 30 minutes, because every 2 hours I was breast pumping for my kiddo, but that would make my blood sugars crash, and then it would take an hour to get it back up, and then I'd have to do it again. And because I had this weird standard in my head that I have to be perfect mom, I refused to stop breast pumping. Instead of like, girl, you're gonna die, but I was like, no, my kid's gonna be fed. Okay, and so I was going through that, and then I got taken to the emergency room 3 times because I kept almost dying. Okay, so okay, all these health scares. Baby finally comes out of the NICU. I'm finally on top of the world because my baby's home. I'm finally at home with Dylan. He's on paid leave. The next day is Valentine's Day. It's going to be the best day of my life if I, you know. So I was like determined that this was going to be perfect. I was going to wake up. I was going to put on jeans like a psychopath. I don't know why. But I remember that was like part of my plan. I was going to put on jeans. I was going to do the laundry. I was going to do the dishes. I was going to have a perfect... Also, my kid, by the way, is on monitors because he still, like, can't breathe on his own very well. So he's, like, beeping all the time. I had all these plans and I was so excited for it that I stayed up all night just staring at my little NICU baby. Just the whole night. I was so excited. Next day, because I have all these expectations, I start doing that. But my body's not ready. My mind's not... 15 days no sleep, too. Like, I'm just, like, insane. You know, I'm, like, right at the brink. Didn't even know it. Would have if I would have stopped for 10 seconds. But you know, I was not accepting anything below whatever idea I had in my head. Was not pivoting at all. Was not accepting it. And it took me literally, this is the event that literally broke me, okay? Kai, monitors start beeping. I on laxatives because I just had a C-section and they're like, girl, you're gonna have to poop eventually. And I was like, okay. Right as he starts beeping, they said, don't worry, don't stress too much because he can kind of breathe on his own, but like maybe not. I was like, okay. So he starts beeping. I'm about to crap my pants. So I go, okay, he seems fine, but I want to keep an eye on him. So I disconnect him from his monitors, waddle to the thing, which is fine. They told me I could do that, like temporarily. Right. But that way I could see him. I wasn't just hearing beeping in the other room. Then he, while I'm literally crapping my pants, like in the bathroom, just like absolutely devastation, he blows out his diaper just everywhere. Okay, so I'm covered in poop from head to toe basically, and then he also throws up on me. Nice kid, you know. And 15 hours of no sleep, so much trauma on my body, that being a weirdly stressful situation, I like blacked out. I remember thinking, okay, Kai is like not safe because I do not feel right in the head. Like I'm like blacking in and out of consciousness. I said, my only goal right now is to get him from this poop situation to at least on the floor in our room so he's safe, and then we can handle whatever happens next. I do not consciously remember the next 2 hours, but when I came to, he's neatly bundled in fresh new clothes, reconnected to all of his wires in the bouncer, bouncing him. I'm completely cleaned up, laundry's folded, the dishes are done. Little psycho childhood me who used to dissociate and take over when I was having a hard time as a kid, took over. I literally was just like, okay, everything's out of control, Savior Kate will come in. And I just like literally blacked out. So conscious me was like not having it. That was scary because I've always been in control of dissociation. Okay, I could always control when I was like, my body's not safe right now. I'm just gonna go in my head, enjoy whatever's happening while my body gets whatever, and then I can pop back in when I'm ready to like reintegrate. But I couldn't control it because I had no sleep. I had all my walls, my mental barriers down. All the years of trauma came flooding in because I hadn't dealt with it ever. Because I was just like, I can deal with that later. So that was a moment where because I refused to just rest and let go of some weird expectation that I had and some goal that I had, I literally pushed myself to being exactly like my mother, a little bit crazy. Okay? And in that moment though, the difference is that I released that expectation, immediately went, you know who's more important right now? Kai. Kai is the most important thing in my life right now. I need to ask for help because clearly that is not okay. And so for a couple of weeks, I had help with people watching Kai. We got me mentally restable. It was a journey, and Dylan was by my side the whole time. He's like the best supportive partner ever. And then when I was fully rested, when I was healed, when I was like taking a breather, it doesn't mean it was easy or not scary anymore, but I started taking Kai 15 hours a day, and I've just been like a consistent mother since. Haven't been like not so ever since, because I learned the importance of just taking care of yourself so that way you can take care of your kid. Okay, that leads me to the everyday pivot that is the micro pivots that sometimes I handle well and sometimes I don't, but every day I try to remind myself it might not go to plan. You might not be the perfect mom. You might not handle everything well. You might not get all the dishes done. But because I try to like lean into accepting things sometimes, I am like, hey, I can enjoy when my son wants to play with me rather than me letting me do the laundry, because I can enjoy the moment and I can pivot for my plans. Or if I do just go off on like some crazy, like I'm yelling at him because he's not listening to me, I can pause and redirect myself because I'm allowed to change the direction I'm going for that day, you know? So that's why it's so important, and I'm so passionate about like giving yourself forgiveness and grace to move in whatever direction you're going, because even if you have the best intentions, you might be like hindering yourself and pushing yourself from the direction you want to go in. Are you okay?
I feel for you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. We're glad we have empathy in the room.
I feel like I can relate to some of it.
Yeah.
Like in a different way.
Yeah.
Especially like I don't know, yelling at your kid when he's frustrated, I guess, and like you're taking it out on them, but like kind of. They feel that.
Yeah.
Too, and that's what you're like trying not to be,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what you had in your head. You're like, I don't want to like do all this because like maybe you were yelled at as a kid or whatever,
Yeah.
and like feeling your parents like yelling at whatever, like,
Yeah.
and then you're like recreating it.
Yeah.
We're trying not to do that, which is why we have to like, stop and like breathe for a minute or something.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Have everybody come in, and like help you like they did. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, thank God Dylan was there,
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
But even if he was there, like, maybe you both even needed more help,
Yeah.
coming in. Like,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But my grandma helps me a lot too, like right now. Like, my boyfriend also just went to rehab today, so I'm a little like
Yeah.
anxious.
You have
today.
a lot of
The
life
next 8
getting thrown
weeks
at
is
you
gonna
right
be
now.
like pretty hard.
Yeah.
Not for me, but I feel like for my kids, like they're gonna be like, "Where's my dad?"
And when it's hard for your kids, it's hard for you.
Yeah, so like they're gonna
Yeah.
be like, but at least they can see him like every Sunday now. He's not like in jail, so like that's gonna be good enough for them.
So right now, it might be like in this like time period, it might be so the most important for you to focus on the little micro pivots every day, where you're like, I might not be like the mom I want to be when I have a constant partner by me all the time, or I might not be the mom that like does everything all the time because I have a lot of big emotions right now that I'm processing. And it's more important to be like breathe through those and like maybe not be as productive than it would be to be the most productive and then lash out. You know what I mean? And also, we all lash out at our kids. I don't really care. I don't really care. I have an angel of a son. Like genuinely, like if a grown man walked up to me right now, my report card of him as a toddler would be like, you were probably the easiest toddler that's ever been created. And I'm sorry that I still got pissed off at you. Because you're another human being that annoys me sometimes and sometimes overstimulates me. And it has nothing to do with how much I love him or how well he is. Like, he's sometimes just, like, living his life, and it's pissing me off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, I wish I could do that. You know, I'm jealous of a toddler. So it's also sometimes the micro pivot that day is to give yourself the forgiveness that you need in that moment and to be like, I am reacting right now. This isn't like how I feel about my kid. I'm reacting to my situation right now. Life is handing you a lot right now. A lot. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how like good your intentions are. That is so much to handle.
Right.
And you're a person too. Before you're a mom, you're a person. And so because that's hard on you, you're going to have all these emotions. And then you see your kids having a hard time. That adds to your emotions because they are an extension of you to a certain degree. And also just because you're an empathetic person and that you care about them and you don't want them to be having a hard time. You also care about your partner who's like having a hard time. So you're trying to balance all these people's emotions. Like you're not gonna have it reined in all the time, and that's okay. So the micro pivots are the biggest ones because they're the ones you have to literally reface every single day, and it never goes away until you die. And maybe, who knows, maybe after we die too we have to deal with that crap. Maybe we still have to make decisions every day. I don't know.
My grandma would probably say that they do.
Yeah.
She's like, we all live in like a reincarnation or something like that. She's like, so I could just see
So maybe next time you come back you'll be like a toad, so your like life decisions will be easier. I don't know, you know. But that's why it's important to pivot, is because every day is hard and every decision is hard, and every day we also grow and change. And that's why it's so important to let yourself grow and change. It's okay if you're a different person than you were 2 years ago, 10 days ago, yesterday. You need to learn from those versions of yourself. But you can also let them go. You don't have to hold it against you all the time. You take accountability and then you move on. So this isn't a dismissal of accountability. This is a take accountability, but also you can't ever move forward if you don't let yourself pivot and move on. So this brings us to, why do we resist pivoting? Well, because it freaking is hard, you know, and it's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of times changing your mind or changing your goals or changing how you approach goals often gets associated with quitting. And you get called a quitter. You're a quitter. Yeah. And you're not a quitter. The fact that you turn around and you do something else anyway, even though you just struggled your ass off for however long, that's not the symptoms of a quitter. That's the symptoms of someone who gets back up after they get pushed down to the ground. Okay? So you got to reframe that. Like, you're not failing. You're pivoting. There's two different things. The other one is, it's a crisis of identity. The reason I keep coming back to this particular example is because I was like raised in the culture, you gotta get married when you're 18 and make your life decisions. And I can't imagine any decision I would have made at 18 that would have been solid, and as far as a partner decision, okay? Not a chance in the world. Everyone I dated, loved them. We were toxic for each other, okay? Glad I didn't put a ring on it. But it also feels like, okay, like a big stupid pivot was that I was vegetarian for 10 years, and all of a sudden this year I'm not, because life threw us a pivot of it's hard to afford 3 different meals for a family all the time.
Right.
It felt like I was going through an identity crisis, even though literally no one else cares. Not a single soul on this planet gives a crap that I'm not eating tofu anymore. But I did, because that was a huge part of my personality. And it was a huge part of my identity. And because I pivoted, I felt like I was a failure or I was like a fraud or whatever. Like, even stupid little things like being a vegetarian becomes a really big part of your identity. So if it's something that's upheld by your family's values that maybe you no longer align with, you're going to be attached to that version of you. And you might even perform that version of you when you're around your parents because you want them to love you, you know, and maybe they will love you even if you do change, you know, maybe they don't know how to accept you if you do change. But regardless, that's inauthentic if you're living like that all the time because you are different and you keep showing up as someone you were 10 years ago. That's why you feel all whack all the time. You know what I mean? Because that's why you feel like a fraud, because you are being a fraud. You're being two different people all the time. And that's valid. I still do it, you know? Sometimes I'm like, yeah, Mom, Dad, I've never drinking alcohol in my life. They know I have. I don't know why I'm lying. But if they ask me up front, I'm like, what's alcohol? I know I was a bartender for like 5 years. I have no idea what that is.
Some bartenders don't drink. They're like, they don't even know.
Well, that's true. Sometimes you see the other side of that and you're like, oh, this is messy, you know? The point being, though, is that that's one of the big reasons why we're scared to change or admit that we're changed. So sometimes we pivot quietly, and that's important to do, too. You don't always have to announce every pivot you make because that's embarrassing, you know? Like, actually, today, I'm going to be a home chef, and then you're like, actually, I hate cooking. You're like, if you announce that every single thing, but that's why social media is hard, because if you announce anything on it, it feels harder to pivot, because now, like, maybe it's only 10 people that saw it, but 10 people saw it. And so now it's going to be 10 people who think you're a loser. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It matters if you show up authentically as yourself. Okay. So, this was going to be a big group question, but now it's going to be for the two of you. What are stories that pop up in your head when you decide to change your mind or when things don't go the way you planned? Like, what's your first immediate gut instinct when you don't get anything done on your to-do list during the day?
I suck.
I feel like I'm still gonna get it done.
You create like a false narrative. You're like, there's still 2 hours left in this day, dude.
Seriously, I feel like I still can at least do one.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just keep going. I don't know. Maybe let's say there is 2 hours, and I'm like, let's hope I can do one of them. Something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. With my bacon, I guess I could take that, let's say, and I really don't even want to do it. I'm like, and then like I do it in maybe 45.
So you
like
literally
after the
peer
kids are
pressure
sick,
yourself to the point of just
I got it.
forcing yourself through it all the time even when you don't want to do it. Yeah. I think everyone feels like that. I think everyone at some point, even if they like have a pretty good balance of like self-worth on side, when you have a plan in your head and it breaks, it's essentially going to feel like it's your fault. Even if it wasn't. Even if there was 20 other things that you literally couldn't have possibly controlled or predicted, or it was other people's actions that came in and like ruined your day. Like sometimes I've gotten in 3 hit and runs and I was at a full stop what do you call it? Intersections. Full stop. And people just went out of the way to hit me and then run away. You know, that is 0% my fault. I was just sitting there, you know? But did it affect the next couple weeks? For sure. For sure. And it also made me feel like I was some weird freak because I got 3 within 10 days. That's crazy. It's the same poor van. That's how Rhonda the Honda got at. Like,
I see this girl post something like that the other day, and it was like a time frame like that, and hers were like getting hit in a parking lot.
yeah.
Somebody just going and T-boning her, you know,
Yeah.
like just speeding.
And it's like 0% her fault. She's just there. You know
And
what
the
I mean?
second time, like I think she had her grandkid in there, and she just like was like, okay, I'm she's like, this is like the second time in a week or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah, life is insane, and it doesn't matter how on top of it or how good of a driver you are or
Right.
how good at chores you are.
Serious.
Things are going to happen that you have 0 control over. One of my favorite quotes to help remind myself so I'm not wasting to myself, permission to pivot, because that's annoying, is I like to say to myself, strong trees bend in the wind. Because trees aren't going nowhere. They're consistent. They're probably the most consistent thing in nature, right? They don't move that much. They just grow in one direction their whole life, and then they're just kind of there until they're dead, you know? So they don't move around. They're not freaking out all the time, but they have to be able to sway in the wind or they break.
There's I
can't remember where I was. I think I was at church, and this lady was saying that her husband went somewhere. He's like a scientist or something, and they had this biome of, they were testing something, and it was full of trees and all these things. Well, these trees had no wind, no resistance, nothing, and they got to a certain height and they just fell.
Yeah.
Because they
couldn't hold themselves up.
Yeah, they couldn't hold themselves up, and I think, well, duh.
Yeah.
Like in my life, like if things are always just perfect, it doesn't feel as sweet as it does when I've overcome something big.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little better, and you're like, oh, this feels awesome.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
Yeah, and so there's that version of that as well, of like, it makes success so much sweeter because you understand that you were this close to failure, or maybe you hit failure a couple of times, and so you're like, this is way better than whatever that was.
Yeah.
But there's also the acknowledgement of no one shames the tree if someone comes and chops it down.
Right.
Or if they're in the middle of the storm and they break and they crush a couple other trees going down with it, you know? But that tree, sooner than later, re-enters nature pretty quickly. You know what I mean? They don't just like, I'm not a part of the world anymore and just like disappear. They have to reintroduce themselves into the world in a completely different way. And no one's blaming it. No one's like, hey, that trauma's your fault. You know what I mean? It's just, that's just what happened. And now you're growing sideways, and now you have mushrooms growing out of your back. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you do break, but that doesn't mean you're done. You know what I mean? So I just want to remind you of that too. So yes, all these things can make you stronger, but sometimes if they break you, they break you. And it's not your fault. You just got to figure out what you're going to do from that. That's another pivot in itself, right? Okay, so a little exercise is in your head when you catch yourself being like, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, whatever. You go, instead of saying, I failed at blank, you reframe that in your mind is, I chose to pivot because. So there's no blame. There's acknowledgement of whatever changed. There's acknowledgement of maybe the struggle you're going through, but there's no self-blame here. It's just, I chose to pivot because of this. So instead of being like, I failed because I didn't do the dishes, I chose to pivot because my son wanted quality time playing blocks. You see how much nicer that is to you in your head? That's still acknowledging the dishes didn't get done. Okay? Like, they're still there. You got to get to them eventually. Right. But it's so much kinder to yourself and gives you the space to go back and do the dishes whenever you get a chance without judgment. So reframing that in your brain, very helpful. So then the last two things, sorry, I'll try to wrap it up here pretty quick, is for big pivots, it's helpful to, one, address and identify where you're feeling stuck. Because if you don't even know why you're feeling like, my life's in turmoil, but I don't even know why. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to figure it out just by, like, freaking out. You know what I mean? You got to, like, try to pinpoint what's causing the most of your chaos, okay? So first you got to identify that there even is chaos. Pinpoint it. Second one, you identify what kind of pivot is this. Is this just like a little micro pivot? Is it the end of the world? Or is it just, my schedule's ruined a little bit? Versus, is this a life-altering career change? Am I getting a divorce? Those are bigger life pivots. It's important to place them in the right category to help you figure out what kind of reaction's necessary, okay? And the last one, the last question you ask yourself for the big pivots or the big moments that you're really freaking out is, ask yourself, what would it be like if I did pivot? Rather than like, okay, but like, if I just commit to this longer, all these things could happen. Okay, well, give yourself a second and go, what would happen if I didn't? What would happen if I did something else? What would happen if I addressed this in a different way? How would I feel? How would I act? What would change? What would disappear? What would come into my life? What would this leave space for? We never ask ourselves, like, what if we just completely uprooted everything that we did? That doesn't mean you have to do it. But it's good to imagine, because all of a sudden, if you get really sad, if you go, because if you're like, let's say you're contemplating divorce. If you go, my life would be really empty and actually all these beautiful things would disappear. Okay, well then that option's off the table. You know, you're just freaking out about something, you know? But if that pivot goes, I could finally breathe, I could finally be the person I want to be, I could be the parent that I want to be, well then maybe that pivot's for you. And it's important to address it. So hypotheticals don't hurt anyone, but not ever addressing hypotheticals do hurt you, for sure. So That's the big pivots. But a little mini exercise you can do is always bring yourself back to the present. That's what I've said in every single one of my little workshops up until now, is that you have to be present, because you can't do anything about what happened in the past, and you can't control the future. So really all you can do in any given situation is focus on what you can do right now. So the little mini exercise is what's true right now. Not what was true 10 years ago, not what could potentially be true in a few years, like I can fix them, you know what I mean? But what's true right now? What's happening right now? Then the follow-up questions, what do I need right now? Like, it might not be what you need in 10 years. It might not be what you needed 5 weeks ago, but what do you need right now? And then what matters most today? Because that will help you figure out what your priority is. Because, like, if what matters most right now is that I could get this career and then in 10 years I could pay for my kids' college, great. But if you're like, today that will make me want to off myself because that career is literally damaging to my brain, what's more important right now? Hey, your kid's potential career if you make it, or like that you're alive and present for your kid. Like, you got to figure out what's happening right now. And so that helps you just ground yourself. And then little things you can say to yourself is, I give myself permission to change my mind. My values are consistent, just not my plans. You know what I mean? So, like, you show up every day, your values are the same, but maybe that changes your course because whatever's happening isn't fitting your values anymore, you know? And then my pivots are a sign of growth, not failure. So those are just nice little mementos to think about yourself. And that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to share, but I just wanted to kind of go over this little sheet. I shared a little quote on the top that I really like, which is, you can pivot without quitting, you can change without failing, you're not starting over, you're starting wiser. Which is just like a nice little way to be like, chill, you know? Then the 3 types of pivots, it kind of gives a brief explanation of what that is. And then the 3 steps is just how you can help yourself get in the habit of pivoting, right? So you address the problem, you figure out your why. Like, why is this thing bothering me? Like, is it just because I'm a control freak, or is it because it's actually like damaging my life? And then the reframe your story is that it's always important to build off of a positive reframe, or at least like a net neutral situation, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be like, I hate my life, I'm gonna build a new one out of this hatred, you know? It's like, you gotta be like, I don't like this life, but like, if I was gonna start a new one, what would be the best for me? You know what I mean? Like, that, even, you don't have to like gaslight yourself, you can just, you know, just like kind of start on a gently, more positive route, you know? Mm-hmm. And then, just remember that every day is an opportunity to be into you, and sometimes that comes with a new plan, or new method, or just a little bit of flexibility during the day, and that's a wrap. But yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for coming.